the enemy mainland. All men are prepared for battle.
In the spring of 1592, a huge group of ships appears off the southern coast of Korea, sailing toward the port city of Busan. Hundreds of ships cut through the water, carrying tens of thousands of Japanese soldiers. And as they come closer, the local guards realize this is no small raid. Fishermen and watchmen along the coast run inland to warn the people, but the ships move faster than the news can travel.
무슨 일이요? 왜들 도망치는 것이오?
저 많은 배들이 우리를 향해 오고 있어요.
By the time riders reach the fortress gates, the ships are already close enough to see clearly, their sails filling the horizon like a wall rising out of the sea. Inside Busan, soldiers and officials rush to get ready, even though their walls were never built to stop an attack this big, and a quiet fear spreads through the streets as people begin to understand that the peace their kingdom has known for many years is about to end. To understand why these ships have come, the story must go back a few years to the man who built this army. By the early 1590s, Toyotomi Hideyoshi has become the most powerful man in Japan. He started with very little and rose up during a long 100-year stretch of civil war, beating rival warlords one after another until almost all of Japan bows to him. With Japan now united under his rule, Hideyoshi looks past his own islands, and his dreams grow bigger and bigger. He wants to conquer Ming China, the great empire to the west, and become the most powerful ruler in all of Asia. But to reach China by land, his army must first pass through the Korean peninsula, the kingdom of Joseon. Hideyoshi sends messengers to the Joseon government with a simple demand: let Japanese soldiers pass safely through Korea on their way to attack China. To the Korean government, this is not something they can agree to. Joseon has had a close and respectful relationship with Ming China for hundreds of years, built on trust, trade, and shared learning. Helping Japan attack their closest friend would be both a betrayal and a danger to Korea itself. So the answer is no. Joseon says no again when a second group of Japanese messengers arrives, and this time the answer leaves no room for talking. In Kyoto, Hideyoshi hears the refusal and starts getting ready for war. Joseon, however, is not ready for what is coming. The kingdom has enjoyed almost 200 years without a big war, and its army has grown old-fashioned and thin. Its government is also split into rival groups who spend more time fighting each other for power than getting the country ready for danger. When some officials come back from a trip to Japan and warn that war is likely, other officials say the danger is being made bigger than it really is, and these mixed reports leave King Seonjo and his advisors unsure of what to believe. Forts along the coast are left broken and unrepaired, and there are not enough soldiers being trained. While Hideyoshi spends months building an army of well over 100,000 men and arming them with guns bought and copied from Portuguese traders, Joseon keeps arguing instead of preparing. Now, in April of 1592, that storm has finally crossed the sea. The Japanese army, led by commanders like Konishi Yukinaga and Kato Kiyomasa, lands near Busan, and the fort commander, Jong Bal, orders his small group of soldiers to fight back. The defenders fight as hard as they can, but there are far too many Japanese soldiers, and the fort falls within hours. The nearby town of Dongnae falls soon after, and its leader, Song Song-hien, is said to have refused to give up even as the walls are broken through. From this first bloody landing, the Japanese army moves north at shocking speed, and news of the disaster spreads through the countryside faster than the government in Seoul can react to it. As the invasion moves forward, fear spreads out from the coast like ripples in water. Villagers leave their homes, carrying whatever they can grab. Families get separated in the confusion, and roads fill up with people running north away from the fighting. Local leaders send worried messages to the capital, but by the time each message arrives, things have already gotten worse than what it describes. In Seoul, King Senjo cannot believe the news. He sends his most trusted general, Sin Rip, south with an army to stop the Japanese at Cheongju. Sin Rip decides to fight on flat, open ground, hoping his horse soldiers will have the advantage, but the flat land instead lets the Japanese guns and well-trained foot soldiers tear his army apart. The loss at Cheongju is complete, and when the news reaches the capital, the last real hope of stopping the Japanese before they reach Seoul falls apart with it. With no army left to protect the capital, King Senjo decides to leave it behind. In the middle of the night, the royal court runs north, and once people learn that the king has left the city, the streets fall into chaos. Some people, angry and desperate, set fire to government buildings, including the palace itself, as a final act of rage against a king they feel has left them behind. By the time the Japanese army reaches Seoul, only a few weeks after landing at Busan, the city sits mostly empty, its royal buildings blackened by smoke, and its people scattered across the countryside looking for safety. How fast the capital falls surprises everyone, even the Japanese commanders, who had expected a much harder fight to take it.
The king keeps moving north, first to Pyongyang, and then, as the Japanese army keeps chasing him, all the way to Uiju, right on the border with Ming China. From there, Seonjo sends message after message begging for Ming's help before his whole kingdom is lost. While the royal government keeps running further and further from its own people, a different kind of fight starts to grow from the ground up. Local scholars, farmers, and old soldiers form their own fighting groups called the Righteous Armies, and they attack Japanese supply wagons and small outposts using their knowledge of the land, something the invaders do not have. In the mountains, Buddhist monks, led by respected leaders like Hujong, also pick up weapons and form their own fighting groups, even though fighting has never been part of their normal life. These small, scattered groups cannot beat the Japanese army in a big, open battle, but they slow it down, cut off its food and supplies, and remind the invaders that taking Korean land does not mean they truly control it. Out at sea, a very different kind of fight is taking shape, one that will change the whole direction of the war. Admiral Yi Sun-sin, in charge of the left Jola naval base, has spent years getting his ships ready, even while much of the rest of the country ignored its own defenses. He trained his sailors hard and helped build the Turtle Ship, a heavily armored ship covered in iron spikes and plates, made to smash into enemy ships and break them apart while keeping enemy soldiers from climbing aboard. In the summer of 1592, Yi leads his ships into several battles against the Japanese Navy, and the results are terrible for the invaders. At the Battle of Sachon, the Turtle Ship fights for the first time, crashing straight through the Japanese lines. At Honsan Island, Yi Sun-sin tricks a large Japanese fleet into open water using his famous crane wing formation, surrounding and destroying dozens of enemy ships in one huge win. These losses at sea badly hurt Japan's ability to send more soldiers, food, and weapons to its army in Korea, because every ship that sinks means fewer men and less supplies reaching the fighting on land. While Yi Sun-sin controls the seas in the south, Ming China finally answers Joseon's calls for help. Ming soldiers cross the Yalu River and march in to join the fight, and by early 1593, a combined Ming and Korean army manages to take back Pyongyang, pushing the Japanese army back to the south. The war changes from a fast Japanese takeover into a long, tiring struggle. Talks begin between Ming and Japanese officials, but the two sides misunderstand each other almost from the start. Japanese negotiators tell Hideyoshi that China is ready to accept his demands, while Ming officials believe they have already gotten the Japanese to agree to leave, and neither side is telling their own leaders the full truth. For a few years, an uneasy quiet settles over the peninsula, with small fights still breaking out, even while diplomats trade offers that satisfy nobody completely. Inside the Joseon government, meanwhile, old rivalries that never really went away start turning against the one commander who has done the most to save the kingdom. Yi Sun-sin's success and popularity make rival officials jealous and suspicious, and some accuse him of cowardice and disobedience after he refuses to attack a Japanese position he believes is a trap. The accusations reach the king, and even after years of victories, Yi is stripped of his command, arrested and dragged to Seoul in chains. He is beaten during questioning and barely escapes being killed, saved partly by officials who argue that his years of service should not be forgotten so easily.
Instead of death, he is demoted to serve as a regular soldier, a shameful fall for the man whose ships had once protected the whole southern coast. Command of the Navy now goes to Won Gyun, a commander with a very different style and far less caution than Yi. Pushed by the government to attack quickly, Won Gyun leads the Korean Navy into a disaster at Chilcheoyang in the summer of 1597. Caught in a well-planned Japanese trap, almost the entire Korean fleet is destroyed in a single battle, and Won Gyun himself is killed. The strong navy Yi Sun-sin spent years building is wiped out in one afternoon, and Korea's coast is left almost completely undefended just as a second major Japanese invasion begins pushing north from the south. Facing disaster, the Joseon government has no choice but to bring Yi Sun-sin back, putting him in charge of a navy that barely still exists. When he arrives to take command, he finds only a handful of ships left, along with tired crews who have watched their friends die. Instead of giving up, Yi decides to make a stand. At the narrow strait of Myeongyang, where the water currents are strong and hard to predict, he lines up his small group of about 12 ships against a Japanese force many times bigger. Using the narrow strait and the wild currents to stop the Japanese from surrounding him, Yi leads the fight from the front himself, encouraging his outnumbered crews as they hold their line against wave after wave of enemy ships. By the end of the battle, the Japanese fleet has lost many ships and is forced to pull back, and the win at Myeongyang becomes one of the most amazing naval victories of the whole war, achieved with almost nothing against an enemy that should have crushed him easily. Even after this win, the second invasion keeps grinding through the southern provinces, and the fighting drags on through 1597 and into 1598, filled with brutal sieges and a war that neither side seems able to end. Villages that had just started to rebuild are burned down again, and the suffering of everyday Korean people continues, largely unnoticed by the distant talks still going on between Ming and Japanese officials. Soldiers on both sides grow tired of a war that no longer seems headed toward any clear ending, and supply lines stretched across the peninsula start to break down under the weight of a fight that has now lasted more than 6 years. Then, in the late summer of 1598, news reaches Japan that changes everything. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man whose ambitions started this whole war, has died. With their leader gone and no clear reason left to keep fighting so far from home, the leaders now running Japan in his place order the army in Korea to pull out. For the tired Japanese soldiers still spread across the southern coast, the order feels like a relief. But pulling out an army this big while under threat of attack is dangerous in its own way. Yi Sun-sin, still leading what is left of the Korean Navy alongside Ming ships, sees the withdrawal as one last chance, rather than a moment to let the enemy simply sail away in peace. In November of 1598,
near the Noryang Strait, the combined Korean and Ming fleet catches a large part of the retreating Japanese ships. The battle that follows is fought at night, in darkness and confusion, ships crashing and burning as both sides fight at close range in the narrow water. It becomes one of the biggest and most violent sea battles of the entire war. In the middle of the fighting, as the Korean fleet gains the upper hand, Yi Sun-sin is hit by a stray bullet. Knowing the wound will kill him, he is said to have asked that his death be kept secret until the battle is over, so his men would not lose their courage while the fighting continues.
울지 마라. 조선의 자유를 가져다 주소라. 내가 떠났단 것을 병사들에게 알리지 마라. 병사들의 사기가 꺾어지가. 안 돼요, 제발.
His nephew carries out this last order, keeping the flag raised and the drums beating, and the Korean fleet fights on to a clear victory without knowing their admiral has already died.
With the defeat at Noryang, the last major Japanese forces finish leaving Korea, ending 6 years of war that neither side truly won. Joseon survives as its own kingdom, but the price of that survival is huge. Whole provinces lie in ruins, farmland has gone untended for years, hunger and disease follow behind the fighting, and the population has dropped sharply because of the deaths, the fleeing, and the destruction the war leaves behind. Countless treasures, palaces, and historical records are destroyed, some of them lost forever. Ming China, after spending huge amounts of money and soldiers defending its ally, comes out of the war weaker, right as new threats begin rising along its own northern border. Japan, for its part, pulls out without gaining the conquest Hideyoshi once dreamed of, and back home, the power struggle that follows his death eventually leads to a new group of rulers taking over. For Korea, the memory of the Imjin War stays alive for many generations, carried forward in the stories of everyday people who fought back against an invasion their own government was not ready to stop, and in the memory of a naval commander who, even after losing everything, came back to defend his country with almost nothing left to fight with. What began with a fleet of ships appearing off the coast of Busan ends 6 years later with that same coastline finally quiet again, forever marked by the war that swept across it. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the forgotten history. If you enjoyed discovering the stories of ancient civilizations, historical figures, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us as we continue uncovering the hidden chapters of human history. Until our next journey into the past, remember, every civilization has a story waiting to be told.